Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
Our collective journey with voice assistants started way before Alexa ever showed up on a kitchen counter. Think HAL 9000 and the ship's computer in Star Trek. And I remember watching all those and thinking, I want that. I want to talk to computers. So in college, I built an open source desktop voice assistant called Pearlbox Voice. It got some traction with the accessibility community and built a small user base. After I graduated from college, I was recruited by SRI International, where I was part of the invention team for Siri. And when Apple purchased Siri and rolled it out across millions of iPhones, it proved that consumers would actually talk to their devices. The big leap for home assistants came in 2014 when Amazon introduced the Echo, a standalone device that just sat on your counter, always listening, always ready. What came next was one of the fastest adoption curves in consumer electronics history. Google launched Google Home in 2016, Apple followed with the HomePod in 2018, and all kinds of third-party devices flooded the market. By the end of the decade, 1 in 4 American households owned a smart speaker. These things were everywhere.
Is it on?
Oh, it's always on.
Can it hear me right now?
Nope.
It only hears you when you use the wake word we chose.
Alexa.
Part of what made these devices feel safe enough to invite into your home was a simple promise. They only listened when you told them to. Say, Alexa, or Hey Google, and that's when the device starts recording.
Alexa, play rock music.
Rock music.
Amazon made this a cornerstone of its marketing, telling us that the devices were designed to protect your privacy. Your idle conversations, your arguments, your late-night kitchen ramblings, all of that was supposed to stay in the room. In 2019, a Bloomberg investigation revealed Amazon employees were routinely listening to thousands of customer audio clips per shift, though. Something I certainly had no idea was happening, and I don't think most people did either. And when users tried to delete their recordings, the FTC found Amazon was quietly retaining the data anyway. To me, the wake word had always felt like a boundary. It turned out to be more of a suggestion, really. Then, in March 2025, the last meaningful privacy option disappeared. Amazon eliminated the ability to process requests locally, meaning every voice command now travels to Amazon Cloud, with no opt-out.
Alexa, drop in on Margot's bedroom. It's time to wake up.
So why does this matter? Because once your voice data lives on someone else's server, you have very little say in what happens next. A 2022 study confirmed that Amazon was using voice data to build advertising profiles and sharing it with all their partners, all the while publicly claiming it did no such thing. And it's not just advertisers. In a single 6-month window, Amazon received over 2,400 subpoenas and 543 search warrants for user data. There's no federal law governing how this data can be collected, stored, or handed over. The rules protecting what you say in your own home are written by the company that sold you the device, and as we've seen, those rules can change any time. Honestly, we only mostly used ours to control some lights, check the weather, or ask how old a famous person is. So given all that, we shut off our Echoes a few years ago. Now they're just e-waste. And I'll be honest, as someone who was there at the beginning of this technology, watching where it ended up feels pretty personally. This wasn't the direction any of us envisioned. So what's the alternative? In this video, I'll show you how you can build your own home assistant that keeps all your data on your own network using an ESP32S3 box from Expressive. I got this for Christmas and really didn't have any idea what to do with it, so I had a lot of researching to do. If you're not familiar, the ESP32S3 Box 3 is a compact open-source development kit from Expressive Systems, running about $50. At its heart is the ESP32S3, a dual-core processor running at 240 MHz with built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and hardware-level acceleration for neural network and signal processing. That last part is what makes it interesting for this project. It's powerful enough to run on-device voice recognition without phoning home to anyone. The kit itself adds a 2.4-inch touchscreen, dual digital microphones, a speaker, and a sensor expansion dock, all in a surprisingly polished little enclosure. It's nothing fancy by cloud computing standards, but more than enough to build a capable, local voice assistant that stays entirely on your network. We're going to pair it with an open source project called Home Assistant to completely replace the Echo. Home Assistant is a free open source home automation platform built around a simple principle: local control first, privacy always. Rather than routing your commands through a corporate cloud, it runs entirely on your hardware in your own home, typically a Raspberry Pi or a dedicated hub, and talks directly to your devices on the local network. It integrates with over 1,000 different devices and services, from smart lights and thermostat to door locks and security cameras, regardless of the brand. In 2025, it claimed the title of the most contributed to open source project on all of GitHub. With over 2 million active installations worldwide, it's the real deal. So for my first task, I want to get the box working with Home Assistant. Since Home Assistant is self-hosted, I'll need to install it locally on my own network. The easiest way to install any service is with a Docker image. If you haven't used Docker before, it's a game changer for running services in your home lab. Instead of installing an app directly on your system, along with all of its dependencies, which can clutter and conflict with your system, Docker bundles the app and everything it needs to run in a single self-contained package called a container. Each container stays neatly isolated from the rest of your system, so you can add, update, or remove services without worrying about them stepping on each other. And because the package is portable, it runs the same way everywhere. You get all of this without the usual setup headaches. In most cases, installing a service is as simple as running a single command. So, I install Home Assistant on the mini server I built in the last video on digital independence. If you haven't seen that, I built this mini server with a Raspberry Pi and a mini PC to bring some of my cloud services back home. It's a simple install and is done in a matter of minutes. Docker really simplifies complex installs. Now it's time to configure the ESP32 box to work as a voice assistant with Home Assistant. The default operating system that Expressive ships works great as a general-purpose development system, but to work with Home Assistant, we'll need to flash a custom image. Flashing was a lot simpler than I expected. You can do it all from the browser. The process is well documented, and before long at all, I had the box connected. It's not turnkey, but the whole process took less than an hour or so. There's several options, but I'm using OK Mycroft as the wake word, and now I can do some rudimentary things. It'll tell me the weather, I can ask it what time it is, set alarms and timers, and a few other basic things. OK Mycroft, what time is it?
12:21 p.m.
OK Mycroft, what's the date?
July 2nd, 2026.
OK Mycroft, can you set a timer for 5 minutes?
Timer set for 5 minutes.
This takes care of 70% of my use cases right off the bat with no additional configuration. Now let's set it up to do a few household automation tasks, controlling some lights and my thermostat, to see how easy that is. Home Assistant supports a lot of protocols, but since I don't want any of this traveling through the cloud, I focused on the local-only options. I went with Zigbee. It has a huge range of supported devices, and the devices themselves link together to form a mesh network. Each one relays signals for the others, so your network gets stronger and reaches further the more you add. This makes it easy to control something on the far side of the house without a dead zone. To act as a coordinator, Home Assistant needs a device that can talk on the Zigbee network. After looking through the options, I selected the Home Assistant Connect ZB2, since it has a great range and is a really slick-looking device. The best part is that you can configure it to use Zigbee or Matter, so you're not locking yourself into a choice. I also picked up some Zigbee-compatible RGB light bulbs and smart plugs to test it out with. As soon as I plug it into the server, Home Assistant auto-recognizes everything right away. I'm honestly floored with how easy this all works. It just goes together. Once I plug in the edge devices, they're immediately discovered and configured. I can control the lights, change their color, and everything right from Home Assistant in the browser and in the mobile app. I plug in the box and it just works too, and now I can control the devices by names. It's really slick. OK Mycroft, living room light on. Remember, all of this is happening on my local network. Nothing's getting transmitted outside my home to the cloud. In just a few hours, I've duplicated most of what I was using Alexa for without giving up any of my privacy. It's not turnkey, but it's pretty amazing how quick and painless the whole process has been. Right now, it's functional and perfectly ready for use. This is such a cool platform for makers, though, that I want to play with it and see if I can take it a little further. One of the things we used Alexa for was to ask basic questions like, what's 17 times 42, and how old is Henry Rollins? For this, I'm going to wire it up to the local LLMs I installed in the last video on digital independence. The built-in voice assistant can do a lot, but when it doesn't know how to respond to a voice command, you can configure it to call a URL using a webhook. I want to stand up a web service that will use my local LLMs with a highly customized prompt to get a short answer back when it's something the voice assistant can't answer by itself. I write some Python code to handle the request. Very basic stuff for interacting with the LLMs and getting an answer back. When the request comes in, it just parses the request, inserts it into a prompt, and then calls the LLM via their API to get an answer. Now, I can ask fairly complex questions and get a somewhat sensible answer back. This is where I get the idea to build the system out even further. I want to display additional information to the user. I decided to add a small monitor to the setup and do something that would make it look good with the mini server. So bear with me for a quick montage and I'll show you what I made. Told you it'd be quick. Here it is. I designed and printed a monitor case, and I programmed a little web app based on the Glances API that lets me view information about resource usage in my home lab. This is a super basic Python web app with a JavaScript front end, but it should suit my purposes well. When I issue a voice command, the output is displayed in the monitor too, with some additional information. After looking at this setup, I made a case for the expressive box too so that it blends in with the machine. It's kind of funny like that. I like how it looks like a robot. Once again, I could end here and have a perfectly functioning voice assistant, but this is such a fun platform that I had to go a little further. More scope creep. A few years ago, I built a simulation of a homebrew computer using microcontrollers. As part of that build, I made this little device with a temperature and humidity sensor to collect temperature and humidity and display it locally, and since it has a Wi-Fi connection, to send the data to the homebrew computer. I wanted to see how much work it would be to tie this into the Home Assistant install, and it was exciting to see how easy it actually was. Basically, I just needed the script to hit a couple of URLs and register itself as a sensor, and then populate data. That all shows up on my dashboard and mobile app. Home Assistant is a seriously awesome platform for makers. This was a fun project. I have a fully functional voice assistant, but none of my data leaves my local network. This means it won't be used for AI training, targeted advertising, or anything I don't consent to. And it's not just the voice data. All the data from my spark plugs and bulbs stay inside my network since they all operate locally using the Zigbee protocol. It's not that difficult of a process, and I learned quite a few things along the way. You don't have to take it as far as I did, but you can take it even further if you want to. Home Assistant is a really fun platform for makers and for people who just want to get stuff done. It's worth playing with if you haven't tried it out. The most important takeaway is that you don't have to give away your data and your digital footprint. You can keep control and learn some new skills in the process. Thanks a lot for watching. Go ahead and click the like and subscribe buttons if you want to. I'll be making more of these. Cheers!